One of the most well-known ghost theories out there is that spirits have a hard time moving on if there was unfinished business when they died. But is it the responsibility of their loved ones who live on to ensure a dead man's soul enters the afterlife? Very interesting question. We'll take a look at a crazy story. And then, talk about crazy stories, we meet a man who's at rock bottom. Until one night he falls asleep in some flea bag motel. It is there he's about to have an encounter with an extraordinary being who may give him hope for the very first time. Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. Hope you guys are having a great day too. Hope you guys had an awesome weekend. We got a ton of stuff to cover. So first off, running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command, everyone get on your feet. Give it up for one of our legacy Patreon supporters, Aaron C. Woohoo! Yeah, he's making a bunch of errors. He's like, don't make fun of my name. I like my name. Aaron C. Like, wait, that doesn't mean a mistake. What are you even talking about? Just come in. Aaron C. is a longtime supporter of the show. That is why he is going to be our Captain Art pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially through the merch store, the Patreon, it's totally fine. It really is. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Before we get started, I want to make an apology for last week. I got sick. You're like, yeah, Jason, we know you're always sick. You're surprised you're able to put out any episodes. But not only did I not have any energy, and I had pretty bad stomach cramps that would last the first couple hours in the morning. I'm not pregnant. So we're clear, I'm not pregnant. I know I did that whole episode on Mpreg, and then I just disappeared. And then I'm like, oh, stomach cramps, and I have this feeling I need to eat pickles all the time. I'm not pregnant. I was not impregnated by Donald Duck, or his Big Bird. Sorry, Big Bird is the one who impregnated some of the listeners last episode. Anyways, yeah. But I appreciate you guys being patient, because I just couldn't really record anything. I just kind of sat in a chair. It wasn't even a fun sick. Sometimes it's fun to be sick. You're just kind of like not feeling good enough to work, but you can still do everything else. You can still have all the fun that you want. You're just too sick to go to work. No, I was too sick to do anything. I watched a ton of movies, and most of them were awful. So that was kind of enjoyable. I do like watching bad movies, but I don't like watching bad, boring movies. And I was watching a bunch of boring ones. I watch a ton of movies, and I watch a lot of low-budget films. And one of the things I've noticed recently, movies seem a lot meaner now. And I watch some crazy stuff. Don't get me wrong. When you put in a movie called Just Like a Dog, or Like Dogs, or whatever it was, and the cover of the movie is a woman in a dog cage screaming for help, you understand you're watching something that's going to be pretty dark. I don't remember what it exactly was called. It's like Dogs, or Just Like Dogs, or Snow Dogs, or Eerbud. I don't remember the exact title. But I'm watching this movie about these college students getting kidnapped, and then they're treated like dogs. And there's this faceless overseer. There's like this voice coming through the speakers, and it's trying to train humans to act like dogs. So they give you dog food. You're getting your belly scratched. You're like, oh, this isn't so bad. I do have a shock collar on. They didn't have shock collars. They had a collar that if they disobeyed, it would inflate. So if you have an inflation fetish, it's perfect for you. Not the person would inflate. You're like all running out. You're like, oh, what was it called again? What was it called? You didn't inflate. The necklace or the collar inflated so it would suffocate you. But you could reverse it. Well, anyways, the movie goes on and on. There's a bunch of twists and turns. And I'm watching it, these people are being treated like dogs, and then there's like this grand conspiracy, and then there's this big plot twist halfway through, then a couple more plot twists. Watch the movie. It was actually one of the more decent ones that I saw this weekend. But then it gets to the ending. Like, it's brutal. People are being tortured, people are being forced to eat dog food, there's a lot of rape. Here's the thing, it's like, I knew that was possible when I watch a movie with a woman in a dog cage. Again, you're like, Jason, maybe you should just stop watching these movies. And when you look at the cover, you're like, oh, this looks like a rough ride. You know, it wasn't like brutal. A lot of it was drug-fueled rape, but not like I'm making excuses for it. You're like, I don't know, Jason. But anyways, it didn't like go into it. It was mostly like the woman would pass out and then they would imply she had gotten raped by one of the scientists. But this movie goes on and on. I'm not going to spoil a bunch of it because you might want to watch it and appear on a watch list, the same one I'm on. We'll be watch list buddies. I'm watching the movie. I'll spoil the ending though. The movie is what it is. It's just like this weird psychological torture movie with physical torture and sexual torture in it. I'm like, okay, you know, this is pretty par for the course. And then the movie ends. You go, okay, so the bad guys lose or win or, well, I mean, that's up to your interpretation who the bad guy is. But I will say this. At the end of the movie, they catch the guy who's been raping her. And he's like, no, I didn't mean to do it. And they clobber him over the head. Actually, they cave his brain in. I thought he was dead. Because they were knocking him over the head with some heavy club. I'm like, okay, they got revenge on this guy. He was a creep. He was doing all these crazy experiments. Bashed his brains in. But then they cut to him. You're looking for the fast forward button. You're like, wow, if Jason was disturbed by this. Where's the fast forward button? I want to skip this. Then in the ending, they cut to that scientist who's a sexual predator and he was killing people and kidnapping all these people. He has a shock collar on him, or a suffocation collar. And he's like strapped down to a table, bent over it. And there are these two women left. And the one girl goes, well, what are you going to do to him? And the main girl, she goes, I'm going to give him a taste of his own medicine. Now, I will argue that what she does is above and beyond a taste of his own medicine. In fact, it was quite cruel. There's this shock, like a cattle prod that they use in the movie to shock the human dogs. She activates the suffocation collar. So he's all, oh, no, please. Oh. And the guy's like in his mid-20s, if that matters to you. You're like, Jason, he's a rapist. It doesn't matter how old he is. You know, but he's like a young guy. He's suffocating slowly with this. You're still fast forwarding. You're like, he's still talking about this. Damn it. The guy is being suffocated with the compression collar. And then the woman turns on the cattle prod and shoves it up his butthole. So for the next 3 to 5 minutes, he's suffocating and going, oh. And I'm like, what? I'm like, listen, I get it. I understand what they're going for, but they don't have to show us. And they don't have to have it going on for so long. He's all, like, Jason, I'm glad you're back. Wow, I really missed new episodes of Dead Rap Radio. This man was anally raped with a cattle prod while he's suffocating. And then it just cuts to the two women. They're still in the room. You can hear him in the background going, oh. I'm like, what is this movie? Jason, you're the one who watched a movie about people being turned into dogs. Not literally. Not you didn't grow fur and have big floppy ears, but you're the one who watched a movie about psychological torture. You know what? You're right, but here's the thing. I'm watching a lot of movies. I want to watch a ton of low-budget horror movies. I'm starting to see movies like it's a post-COVID thing, and I don't know if it says something about the psyche of the nation. I don't know if it's something about the filmmakers. These movies are not Hostel and Saw. Well, like Dogs, it could have been that. But even that movie, there was almost no violence. Well, people were getting raped and suffocated. Okay, you're right. But there was no blood spilled until maybe the last 20 minutes. And then it became unbelievably brutal. Other people died, got their heads squished open like a brick falling on a can of SpaghettiOs. But can of SpaghettiOs with someone's head. Went everywhere. The movies are meaner than they used to be. I have a lot of examples like that. Like, I could go on and on with low-budget films that are exceedingly brutal in the last few minutes. It's shocking. I really do feel that. A lot of these low-budget movies. I saw a movie where a guy got drowned in a bag full of vodka because he was drinking and driving and he killed some guy's daughter. So he wanted revenge. So instead of shooting the guy like Chuck Norris would have done, or instead of throwing him off a cliff like Arnold Schwarzenegger, he put a plastic bag, wrapped it around this kid's head, and then filled the bag full of vodka, and the guy drowned. And it was a single shot. They never cut away. For all I know, that actor's actually dead. Because I was like, how did they do it? That was one where I had to rewind it. I go, what? How did they even do that? So anyway. You're like, well, yep, this is why I tune in Dead Rabbit Radio. I sign up for the paranormal stories, and then Jason tells me how his weekend was, and somehow it's even more horrific than what I'm about to talk about. I missed you guys, too. Let's go ahead and get started. Aaron, I'm going to go ahead and toss you the keys of the Jason Jalopy. Let's leave behind my movie viewing room. Are you sure you don't want to spend a little more time here? I got a lot of movies to show you. Like, nah, it's good. We're leaving behind Dead Rabbit Radio's secret movie vault. Why don't you drive us all the way out to North Carolina? Possibly. The story, I think, takes place in North Carolina. We'll get to that in a second. And the time of this story is probably the mid-1980s, somewhere around there, and we'll explain that a little bit more as we come up. It's not super essential to the story, but just to kind of set the picture for you. We're about to meet a family, and there's quite a few siblings in this family, but we're going to focus on two. We're going to meet Veronica. She's only a 7-year-old girl when this story takes place. But that's not a real name, Veronica. All of these names are made up. We're going to meet Veronica, 7 years old, her brother, who we will call Tony. One day, when Veronica and Tony were home alone, he's also young, around the same age, I believe, give or take a couple of years. Veronica and Tony are home one day, and that is when they see their father, who we will call Albert, laying motionless in the house. If you came home, one of your loved ones was motionless, slumped over the chair, laying on bed, and it's 3 in the afternoon or whatever, it might alarm you immediately. I think it would most families. But Albert was a drunk. So the fact that he was passed out, this is something the kids would have seen before, living in a home with an alcoholic. They would have seen him passed out. They would have seen him in a stupor, all this stuff. The thing is that even though Veronica and Tony are both kids, they do think this is more than just him being passed out. They think Dad is dead. Now, Veronica explains when she posted this story online, she goes, back then, we didn't even know 911 was a thing. So that's why I'm placing the story in the 1980s, because I remember when they started showing commercials about 911, and in school we were learning to call 911, and that was something in the 80s. I actually did look it up. In 1979, only 26% of the country had access to 911. By 1987, 50% of the country. So who do you call? Everyone probably has a doctor, or you can call a hospital, but now you're having to go through the yellow pages and find that stuff. What Veronica and Tony do is they go to their next door neighbor and they say, hey, I think something's wrong with our dad. He's not moving. And the neighbor goes, well, he's probably just drunk, kids. I mean, your father is an alcoholic. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. I think everything will be okay. The neighbor did not go over to check. So Tony and Veronica went back and they stayed with their dad until their mom came home from work. And that is when they had 100% confirmation that they had just spent a few hours with their father's dead body. About 3 years after that, Veronica remembers there was this day where she was outside playing with her brothers. Because she has a big family, she has brothers and sisters. She's out there playing with her brothers, and she's out there playing with the neighborhood kids. And this argument breaks out between Veronica and the neighborhood kids. And it gets so heated, Veronica realizes, I'm leaving. Like, that's the only thing I can do. I gotta go back home. So Veronica runs away from the kids and her brothers and goes inside, and now she's really crying. And she's so mad, and she's so sad and angry and frustrated, and all of this stuff is going on. And as she's peeking through the blinds and looking outside, she feels something behind her. She feels like there's a presence in the house watching her. Veronica turns away from the window and looks. And sure enough, she sees what she calls a presence. And she didn't tell us that she saw like a shadow man, or she saw like a glowing ghost, or a little Casper guy floating by. But she definitely said, I saw something, and I could feel it. And it was moving towards me. And while she said I could not hear any sound at all, she heard in her head her dad's voice. Everything's going to be okay, kiddo. Don't worry about it. I'll be watching over you, kid. Everything's going to be okay. Just words of comfort from her father who died 3 years ago. As years go by, she continues to feel her father there for her. She doesn't really go into detail about these other interactions. She doesn't say that they always come up in times of crisis. But she just said over the years she would sense her father was there to comfort her. It sounds like a beautiful story. We've covered stories like this before on the show. There is a comfort to it. Our loved ones looking after us after we're gone. It's almost like the most basic ghost story. But here's the question I asked in the intro. Does Veronica have a duty to help her father's soul move on? He might be hanging out here because he wants to watch his little girl grow up. But Veronica thinks that's not it. Veronica thinks the reason why her dad is still here and connected to her and visiting her is because he has unfinished business. So let's take a look at how Veronica ended this story, this narrative. I don't like using the word story, I use it all the time, but you know what I mean? How Veronica ended this narrative about her life. The comforting thing is one thing, but here's the problem. Albert was he wasn't just a terrible dad, he was a terrible person. So does Veronica, if he is there to try to get an apology or to try to make up for all of the bad parenting he did, does Veronica have a obligation to help him over to the other side? If he's not just here to comfort her, but if he's here to make amends, does Veronica have a obligation to forgive her father and let his soul pass on? Let's finish this narrative out, because like I said, not just a terrible dad, a terrible person. Speaking about Albert, she says, quote, "He was drunk a lot and let his friends try to touch and fondle his two daughters. I kind of feel he's trapped somewhere between life and death, forever trying to get his little girl to forgive him. I never will." Unquote. This is going to be tough because I would side with Veronica on this. I understand why she doesn't want to forgive him. And I understand why he may feel like he needs to get her forgiveness so he has that peace in his heart so he can go to the other side. And until he gets that, he can't move on. But she's like, I'm never going to forgive him. Ever. I mean, this story at this point is probably close to 85 to 95, 95 to 2005, 2005 to 2015. This story is almost 40 years old at this point. Even if we didn't get the exact date of somewhere in the 80s, it's close to that. 30 to 40 years this has been going on. But I totally understand her not wanting to forgive him. Is that keeping his soul trapped on Earth? Possibly. You could go, Jason, well, she doesn't know for sure. Maybe he is just trying to make up for being a bad dad and doesn't need her forgiveness. And that's possibly true as well. She might have the motive wrong. But there's really not a way for her to find out. I guess she could go to a medium, but... I mean, again, what if she knew 100% that she needed to forgive him so he can move on to the afterlife? Does she have an obligation to do that? And I don't think you do. My question would be, let's extrapolate it out. Eventually, Veronica's going to pass away. Hopefully, long life, long peaceful life. She's going to pass away. What happens to her father's spirit then? If he doesn't get that forgiveness, and the only person who could give him that forgiveness and let him move on is dead, what happens to his spirit? Is it truly a trapped soul? Like there's nothing that it can do. And it slowly devolves into a specter or a wraith, something malevolent. But again, is that Veronica's problem, right? If her dad becomes a screaming banshee and haunts a house and drives out resident after resident over the next 50 to 100 years, is that Veronica's problem? No. She doesn't have to accept his apology. She doesn't have to forgive him. Super fascinating story because it does go against what we normally talk about with ghost stories. So many ghost investigators, so many of these stories we've covered are about helping souls move on to the other side, take care of the business, or say that last thing, whatever it may be. That's what a lot of ghost researchers aim to do, especially the ones who work on the spiritual side. You have ones that just want to document ghosts, but you have ones that want to help souls move on. But do we actually have an obligation to do that? She doesn't. I totally understand where she's coming from. Aaron, let's go ahead and toss you the keys of the world-famous Carpenter Copter. We're leaving behind North Carolina. Oh, the reason why I think it takes place in North Carolina is Veronica, who continues to post online. She posts in North Carolina as well. So I think that might be where this story took place or whereabouts. But interesting stuff. Aaron C., let's go ahead and toss you the keys of the world-famous Carpenter Copter. We're leaving behind North Carolina. Why don't you fly us all the way out to South Carolina? I didn't even know that. I didn't even look at these two stories together. This story's interesting because it almost is a perfect companion, even though they're in dueling states, or North and South. They were both on the same side of the Confederacy, I think. This one we know for sure takes place in South Carolina, specifically Goose Creek, South Carolina, and even more specific than that, the Hilton Hotel in Goose Creek. This story was sent to me by the last 747, longtime story submitter to Dead Rabbit Radio. And the last 747 got it from Phantoms and Monsters, which is run by Lon Strickler, a great paranormal website. They publish a ton of stuff every day. So thank you, the last 747, and thank you, Lon, for all the good work both you guys do. The year is 2019. And we're about to meet a man, let's call him Thomas. Don't have his real name. He is a man who has some serious problems. First off, this guy's plagued with nightmares, always having scary dreams. Secondly, that's not that bad, right? You're like, oh, wow, that last girl had a terrible childhood. This guy just had some nightmares. No, you don't let me finish. Terrible nightmares, yes, but he also had a lifetime battle with addiction. He doesn't say exactly what, but I'm assuming alcohol and drugs, or maybe some other stuff too, maybe gambling addiction, a little porn addiction thrown in there. Just a lot of addiction issues. One is bad enough. He said, what would happen in my life was that every so often things would really work out for me. Usually it was because I would stop being addicted to whatever I was addicted to. And I'd get my life together and things would work out. But then it didn't matter how well things were going in my life. I kept relapsing. And what it would do was all of a sudden my career was thrown into chaos. My whole life was tumbling around me. And I was once again locked in this addiction. And then, I would get myself clean again after a period of time and be like, this is it. I'm never going to use again. Well, one night, Thomas is at this flea bag. Oh, you know what? I keep calling it a flea bag hotel. Let me back up here. He specifically did not say this hotel sucked. I don't know why I had that image in my head. I just pictured Thomas laying on a bed being like, why am I always a slave to my addictions? Why can I never stay the course? Why do I always relapse? And I just imagine him bumming out in this hotel. But looking over at my notes, like I said earlier, this takes place at the Hilton Hotel. It might be a lovely place. I'll check the reviews out and see what it's like. Maybe it's beautiful. Maybe it's a beautiful Fleabag hotel. I apologize, Hilton. That was my own brain creating an image of... I love hotels, right? And Hilton's the best. I'm all backtracking. I do stay at a lot of hotels traveling for the show, so... I don't want to get banned from any, but anyways, Goose Creek is not going to be happy to see my booking soon. Anyways, one night when he's at the luxurious, comfortable 4-star hotel in Goose Creek known as the Hilton Hotel, Thomas is watching a documentary on ancient gods. He's really into it. He's like, oh, dude, this is my best. I hope they show Zeus. I hope they show my favorites, Zeus and Hermes, and that guy who built all the swords. Who was the blacksmith god? I don't remember, but he's like, oh, dude, I hope they show some of the best one. Not those lame-o Roman gods they ripped off the OGs, the original gods. Get out of here, Jupiter. Move out of the way, Mercury. It's time for Hermes and Zeus to hang out. Anyways, he's watching this documentary on ancient gods. He gets really into it. And he decides to memorize all of the gods' names that they talk about. I'm assuming he had like a pen and paper. And he got so into this, he said, I'm going to memorize the names of all of these ancient deities. And then he decided to pray to all of them. And he begins saying their names. Zeus, Hermes, the man who made swords. Some guy in Burbank right now is making a sword. He's like, what? Who's talking to me? No, I'm talking about the great gods. Shiva, and Cali, and he opens his eye, looks at his list, he's like, "I'm fine, Jupiter, I'll put you on there too. Jupiter and Mercury and Venus and all. I get everybody." He prays to all of the ancient gods, and he asks them, "Release me from this burden. Release me from this burden." And when he is done with his prayer, he crawls into bed, luxurious, 1,000-count sheets, not a cockroach in sight of the Hilton Hotel in Goose Creek. He crawls into bed, shuts off the light, falls asleep. But in the middle of the night, he's awakened suddenly because there's an intruder in his room. Hilton Hotel has terrible security. Great sheets, but horrible security. They don't have locks on their doors. But it's not a man looking to steal his watch. No. Thomas sees standing near his bed a huge brown mantis-type being. He sees a mantis being. And he goes, huge is an understatement. He goes, this guy was so big, his head touched the ceiling. Big giant mantis. They do have a bug problem at the Hilton Hotel that is quite the flea bag. He looks and he sees this giant mantis-like entity standing in his hotel room. And it appeared that it had stepped out of a portal, because Thomas could see that there was a portal or some sort of opening in the hotel room wall. Thomas is completely paralyzed. All he can do is move his eyeballs. You go sleep paralysis story, Jason? Well, let me finish. He's completely paralyzed. He did wake up in the middle of the night and he can't move, so it does sound like sleep paralysis. But he's laying there. All he can move is his eyes. However, the mantis can move. And he begins to turn flat, right? So he's standing up and then he starts to, like, float. You're like, is he doing push-ups? Does he just lay on the ground? You're all stepping on the mantis. You're like, get out of here, bug. I'm leaving you a 1-star review, Hilton Hotel. Look at the size of the box. It's like an 8-foot-tall bug. 1 star. No, he lays down, but now he's floating. So he's floating like, imagine that you, get down on the floor, and lay on the floor. And now imagine, Jason, I didn't have to do it. I knew what you meant. No, I want you to do it. Lay on the floor. And now imagine you float up, stiff as a board, light as a feather. You go, whoop, and now fly around the room, bumping your head into stuff you're knocking over television. I didn't know this podcast could give me supernatural powers. It can. The mantis being turns horizontal. That was the word I was looking for. Turns horizontal and begins floating around the room until he is floating directly over Thomas, who's still frozen in bed. This mantis being is floating about 3 to 4 feet above Thomas, and it's staring right into Thomas's eyes. Thomas is staring right into the mantis being's eyes, and he immediately feels a sense of calm wash over his body. Oh, wait a second. Let's back up here. So, go back. Like, damn it, Jason, just edit it out. Just change it in the edit. Hold on. So confusing. I'm looking at my notes. I'm sorry. So go back to the beginning of the story, basically. The mantis is standing in the hotel room, and Thomas floats around. Thomas is laying perfectly still. Then wait, what? Let me double check this real quick. They're both floating around. They're all bumping into each other. This will get rid of your crippling addictions. Bumper cars. Let's see here. Who's floating? I'm confused. Okay, yeah. So Thomas floats out of bed. He floats up. But it only floats up about 3 to 4 feet off the bed. So he's not flying around. Damn it, Jason, you made me get on the ground for nothing. You're all dusting yourself off. You were laying on the ground the whole time. You're like, I'm sure this will pay off. No, not you. The mantis guy wasn't laying on the ground. Thomas floats out of the bed. He's about 3 to 4 feet off the bed. And now he actually is kind of eye level with his mantis bean. So they're staring at each other. And the entire time, Thomas isn't scared. He feels like the mantis bean is here to help him. After about 3 to 5 minutes, is what Thomas estimates. After about 3 to 5 minutes, Thomas has slowly returned to his bed. The mantis is like, that looked fun. I wonder if I can do that. Whee! He's all floating around too. Thomas is like, oh yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it? Thomas is returned to his bed, falls to sleep. When he wakes up in the morning, he can move. He's no longer frozen. And the portal is gone. The portal that was on the hotel wall. In fact, he goes, it didn't look like there was a hole there at all. So I don't know if it was like a swirling mass, like a cool sci-fi portal, or if it just was this opening. He's like, I hope I get my deposit back. I didn't create that 8-foot tall opening in the wall. He goes, not only was the portal gone, it looked like there was no damage to the wall whatsoever. No, you go, Jason. Okay, it's an interesting story. He is an addict, right? I mean, he doesn't say what it is, what he's addicted to. Was this some sort of sleep paralysis? Was this some sort of drug-fueled hallucination? Well, possibly. And I would argue, and again, I don't know what this guy's addicted to. I would argue if you watch a documentary about ancient gods and you memorize all of their names, that sounds like meth behavior to me. You're all a professor in theology. You're like, oh, what? I'm not a meth addict. Oh, man, that's my job. I watch those documentaries all the time. That's how I do my research. I'm not saying if you have an interest in ancient gods, you're a meth user. But that does seem kind of meth-like, to become hyper-focused. But again, I don't know what he's addicted to. He could be just addicted to pornography or something like that. He's like, ooh, Venus. Aphrodite, that's my favorite goddess. But you know what I mean? Like, it could be meth. It could be anything. I'm assuming if you're addicted to fentanyl, you're probably not watching much television. You're just asleep the whole time. You're like, what was on? He memorized all these names. He prayed to them. This mantis shows up, or does it? Was it all hallucination? This is one of those stories there where you have to say, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If this was a dream, if this was a drug-fueled hallucination, or if this was a true paranormal experience. Because since that night, Thomas has had 0 cravings for whatever his drug of choice was. Since that night, his life has changed for nothing but the better. All the cravings were gone the next morning. And that night when he went to sleep, no more nightmares. In fact, he hasn't had nightmares since, and he hasn't had any cravings, no problems with any of his addictions since. This story happened in 2019. He submitted this story to Lon Strickler in 2025. So we're talking about a 6-year gap where he has had 0 cravings. He's had 0 problems keeping his addictions in line. He doesn't have addictions anymore. He's completely changed. And the nightmares, while that seems minor to us, the nightmares obviously were connected to the addiction in some way or another. The addictions may have developed because of some sort of unaddressed trauma. Could have been self-medicating. Could have been trying to find peace during the day by doing these drugs or watching this porn or gambling or whatever it was. Because at night it was so awful he couldn't control his subconscious. I think the two did go hand in hand. But whatever the case, he is reset. No addictions, no nightmares. So whether or not it was a hallucination or an actual paranormal encounter, he got purged of all of this bad stuff that was inside of him, that was latched onto his psyche and was never going to let go. Even when he was clean, that Damocles sword was hanging there. Now, what's fascinating about this, I mean, other than the fact that a giant insect showed up at the Hilton Hotel, is the fact that, one, Thomas goes, I kind of want to see the guy again. Because I want to say thank you. Like, he completely changed my life. He says, because he doesn't really know what it was either, like what the experience was. He goes, quote, "Whatever that was, it cured me and allowed me to become successful in life. I often pray for this being to return so I can somehow thank it for changing my life." Continuing the quote, "I equate the experience or help of flipping a switch in my life that fixed many problems instantly," unquote. So he wants to say thanks, which is cool. Because he knows that his life is better post-Mantis than it was pre-Mantis. He goes, "I would like to say it was just a dream." Because it's funny because he's still trying to debunk it. It sounds so ridiculous. He goes, "I'd like to say it was just a dream, but my life is so much better now that it's kind of hard for me to dismiss it." He also ends this, when he sent this into Lon, he said, quote, "I would be very interested to learn if you know of any way to summon these beings," unquote. To say, hey, what's up? And also, it'd be a good way you could help other people with this. If these entities were easy to summon, then other people who are struggling with addictions could do this as well. Lon Strickler, who runs Phantoms and Monsters, he said that he told Thomas, when he contacted him, he goes, "Thomas, insectoids are very hard to trust. In fact, no matter what they do, they always have an agenda. And that agenda probably doesn't favor humans or any other species they encounter. So you really have to watch out for these guys. You can't trust them." It's basically what he's saying. What's interesting about this, and I understand and I respect where Lon is coming from, I'll start to wrap this up here, is that Lon Strickler is talking about, and again, I could be wrong, but it seems like Lon Strickler is talking about Mantis aliens, which he is pretty right on that. I love Mantis aliens just because I think they look cool. Like, gray aliens are kind of boring at this point. Reptilians are built for battle. Mantis aliens are just, they're just cool looking. I'm sorry. They're just pretty dope looking. But they are not a friendly species to humans. And that would make sense, right? The reason why reptilians and insectoids have a hard time with humans is because we're just, not just from different planets, we're completely different species. I mean, I know that means different planets, but you know what I mean? Mammals, reptiles, and insects. You really can't get farther apart from that, even on different planets. There would be a superiority. I mean, we squish bugs. Ants are the second most advanced species on this planet. And we spray them out because we don't like them walking all over our food, which is disgusting. It's disgusting, but sure. I'm very pro-ant, and we still kill them. We don't think anything of it. So, I mean, insectoids, reptilians, and humans, that will be, I don't believe we'll ever go to war with gray aliens. Even though I make jokes about constantly punching them in the eyes and burning them to death, I might go to war with gray aliens. They might kidnap me and send me to the gladiator chambers, the gradiator chambers, as they call them. They're stupid. They don't know. I didn't make that joke. It was a gray alien joke. Reptilians, we'd go to war with. I think insectoids, we'd go to war with as well. But I don't know if this was an insectoid alien or a mantis alien. This might have been a spiritual entity. This might have actually been something completely removed from an alien race. So it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be the same. If aliens came down and they looked Greek and they were throwing lightning bolts at us, I would probably think, wow, that's Zeus. But then when I saw like an army of them and they had their own government, and whenever they voted on stuff, they're like, whoever throws the most lightning bolts at this bill, he gets elected. Papers burning everywhere. If they had their own functioning society, like lightning bolt based currency, that'll be $1 million lightning bolts, please, guys. I'd go, well, that's a bad example because you're like, obviously Zeus is from that planet, you idiot. I know what you're trying to get at. That if there was a race that looked like something, actually, you're like, what were you trying to get at? What I'm saying is that if I prayed to Hermes, I'm like, please give me fast feet. Give me fast feet. And didn't we cover a story about that? I'll have to find that. I think we covered an episode a long time ago about a guy who was being shot at in Africa and he prayed to Hermes and then he ran super fast. Or is that just, am I imagining that episode? I'll see if I can pull that up. But if I prayed to Hermes and I said, please give me fast feet. What does that even mean? You just want to run fast? Say run fast then, you idiot. Don't say fast feet. My feet go taking off. I'm like, I'm just laying there with bloody ankles. He's the Wishmaster. He's not the real Hermes. Hermes may not show up, but he may send one of his cronies. And like some lizard shows up. He's all running really fast. He's running across the water. And he goes, hey, Hermes said you pray to him. You wanted fast feet? What does that mean? I was like, I just want to run fast. You know, Hermes may not have the time to come out. He may send you like, Jason, you're just pulling this out of your butt. What are you even talking about? Lon Strickler's probably right. It was probably some alien who heard these prayers and came down and cured this guy. But maybe in the future they'll want something in return. Who knows, right? I would advise it's not a great idea to pray to a bunch of gods you heard about in one episode of the Discovery Channel. I think a lot of stuff can go wrong. But in this case, it didn't. And this is one of those interesting stories where whether or not his prayers were answered and they sent this Mantis alien assistant, right? All of a sudden, every god's phone goes off and Zeus is like, hey, Callie, did you just get a phone call? And Callie's like, yeah, I did just get a phone call. Hey, Coyote. And the Coyote is like, what? And he's like, did you get a phone call? And the Coyote's like, no, I don't have a phone. I'm Coyote. No, sorry. I just don't know a bunch of ancient gods. They're calling around and they find out all these gods got a phone call at the same time. They got this prayer from this dude at the Hilton Hotel in Goose Creek, South Carolina. And they go, well, you know, we're all a little too busy just floating around up here. But who has the most grotesque assistant? Who has like the biggest one? And one of the gods is like, I think I have this giant praying mantis. They're like, that'll be perfect. Is he tall? Oh, he's tall, all right. He won't even fit in the hotel room. It'll be hilarious. So they send this guy in. He could have been a spiritual deity coming to answer this guy's prayers. It could have been an alien who, either because it has an agenda or because it felt bad for the guy, heard the prayer and came down and cured him. It could have been a drug-fueled hallucination, or it could have been a crazy dream, like sleep paralysis. This is one of those stories where it almost doesn't matter. He's better off now after the event. And that's absolutely fascinating. Like, if it's paranormal curing him, we have a ton of stories like that, whether it's guardian angels or miracles or what have you. If it's his own mind basically making itself reboot, even drug-induced, we have stories like that, right? Whether it's ayahuasca or microdosing magic mushrooms or macrodosing magic mushrooms, what have you, brains being reset through chemicals. Brains just resetting themselves. We do have stories like that as well. People, you might have experienced that. You know someone who just changed for the better. A fascinating story. It almost doesn't matter if it's paranormal or not. He is in a better place now. The only caveat to that would be if it was a Mantis alien and it does have an agenda, this could be a pre-prize, or as I call it, a pre-ward instead of a reward. You're getting something up front for something you're going to do in the future. You don't tell anyone that. You just give them the pre-ward, and then in the future, that Mantis alien shows up and be like, hey, remember when we cured you of all your addictions? And Thomas is like, oh yeah, dude, I've always wanted to say thank you for that. Also, can you make me float? Can I float around during this conversation? The Mantis is like, fine. Thomas is like, wee. He's floating around. He's just laying back, hovering, stiff as a board. The Mantis goes, well, you know, we cured all your addictions. It was quite easy. You just stared into our eyes. But now we have a favor to ask you. And Thomas is like, yeah, whatever, man. He's just floating around. And the alien's like, that's kind of distracting. He's all floating out the window. Oh, no, come back, Thomas. Come back. The alien goes, here is a list of every Orcan man in your area. Like, What's an Orkin Man? It's like Lord of the Rings. You know, sometimes I forget this show is broadcast internationally. People are like, what's an Orkin Man? If you don't know what an Orkin Man is, it's a very famous pest control agency in America. Maybe it's just the West Coast even. People in South Carolina was like, Orkin Man? Is that like the enemy of Gandalf? No, it's a guy who comes out to your house and sprays for bugs, the Mantis explains. See, the Orkin Man, or we call them the Orkin Men because there's a lot of them, have been killing our kind on your planet. And enough. We've had enough of this. So we want you to blow them all up. Here's some bombs. It's handing them like comically sized bombs, big black bombs with a fuse. And like just throw them at Orkin trucks. Because we cured your addictions, Thomas. Now we're just asking for a little favor. A mass casualty event. Actually, the Orkin Company's having a convention at the Goose Creek Hilton Hotel this weekend. We want you to go and plant all these bombs around, and when you see all of the Orkin men enter... Jason, now I think you're not saying the hotel is dirty. I think you're this close to making a terrorist threat. No. No, I'm not saying you should blow up the Hilton Hotel in Goose Creek. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not even going to finish the joke I was originally telling because it could have come off like that. No, okay. So the Mantis is like, bombs? No. In fact, here, we're going to give you all of these bugs. Where the Hilton Hotel's like, okay, we're fine with that. We are infested with bugs already. That's why all the Orkin men are having their convention here. It's a working convention. The Mantis goes, listen, I have these boxes of African hissing cockroaches. These are my cousins. These are all my cousins all in this box. They're pretty cool guys. You can hang out with them afterwards. Thomas is like, no, I'm cool. Thomas, I want you to throw these cockroaches into the air vent. And they'll fly around and they'll land in all the Orkin people. That's all we want you to do. It's just a Dennis the Menace-esque prank. It's like, yeah, sure. I no longer have a crippling addiction to methamphetamines. You just want me to throw some cockroaches at people? Yeah. That doesn't sound so bad. Who knows, right? Who knows? It's one of those stories that he's better off either way. And if the Mantis aliens want him to throw a couple cockroaches around the Hilton Hotel, I mean, that's a good trade-off too. I'm not saying you should do that. You're all addicted to drugs. You're sitting there and you're like, what? You're unconscious this whole episode, and then you're like, wait. I can stop being addicted to You're writing down the address. What was it? Goose Creek? Okay, South Carolina. That's not too far away. Hilton Hotel, you're booking a room right now, and then you look over, you have a box of cockroaches there, you're like, oh yeah, I knew I bought these babies for a reason. No, I'm not saying that will cure your crippling addiction, but I will say, whatever the case, this guy's life got better after the event, so paranormal or not, it's still a fascinating and miraculous story to be free of those addictions. What a burden to be lifted off of you, whatever the reason. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. No, Hilton Hotel already sent me a cease and desist. Let's see if this episode stays up. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal conspiracy and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day.